If I hear one more word about how deserved this kitchen is, there won't be any polite smiles left in this room. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I just stood there, my boots clicking against the pristine Italian marble Melinda had bought with my blood, sweat, and combat pay. She froze, a crystal glass of champagne halfway to her lips, the celebratory glitter in her eyes turning into something sharp and defensive. She had just spent the last 10 minutes giving me a tour of her victory, boasting about the open concept layout and the custom cabinetry. She expected me to congratulate her on the housewarming. She expected me to play the role of the dutiful, silent stepdaughter while she stood in a house built on my stolen future. I leaned against the counter, my expression as flat and sterile as a hospital corridor. I wasn't there to celebrate. In the field, we have a protocol for trauma: assess, stabilize, evacuate. I had already assessed the damage to my savings. Now I was here to ensure her dream home became the site of her legal disaster. I didn't need a detective to tell me where the money went. I just needed to look at Melinda's social media. While I was pulling double shifts in a humid field hospital, she was tagging herself at high-end furniture showrooms. When I finally logged into my high-yield savings, the $40,000 I'd earmarked for a villa loan, the balance was a hollow, echoing zero. I confronted her in that very kitchen. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out a leather-bound notebook, a modern version of the ledger she'd kept since I was 12. "Think of it as back pay, Batya," she said, her voice smooth and clinical. She actually had the audacity to list the cost of my teenage years, the electricity I used, the laundry she'd folded, the space I'd occupied in her house. To her, my life savings wasn't a future I'd earned. It was a debt she was finally recalling. My father stood behind her, staring at his shoes, murmuring that we should keep the peace. But peace is a luxury you can't afford when you're being hunted by a predator under your own roof. She didn't see a daughter. She saw an ATM with a pulse. I didn't waste time on a shouting match. In my line of work, emotions are a distraction. Data is a weapon. I sat in the dim light of my laptop, the blue glare reflecting off my dog tags, and began the digital autopsy of my bank account. Melinda was arrogant, but she wasn't a ghost. Every transaction leaves a footprint, a ghost in the machine, that tells the truth when people lied. I pulled the logs. There it was. A forged power of attorney submitted digitally while I was mid-deployment. She had used a scanned copy of my signature from an old medical release form. A crude copy-paste job she thought was genius. But she missed the metadata. The document was uploaded from a device with a unique MAC address, her personal tablet. Then came the real discovery. She hadn't just drained the $40,000 for the down payment. She had listed my military pension as guaranteed recurring income to secure a high-interest bridge loan. She wasn't just stealing my past. She was mortgaging my future. I exported the IP logs, saved the timestamped forgeries, and labeled the folder evidence. The paper trail was a straight line leading to a cell door. The housewarming party was in full swing, a sea of expensive perfume and forced laughter. Melinda moved through the crowd like a queen surveying her new kingdom, her hand resting possessively on my father's arm. When she saw me walk in wearing my dress blues, her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before resetting into that polished plastic mask. "Batya, you finally made it," she chirped, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "I hope you brought something for the new house." "I did," I said, my voice cutting through the ambient chatter like a scalpel. I reached into my bag and pulled out a heavy, cream-colored envelope tied with a black ribbon. I didn't hand it to her. I placed it on the marble island right next to the appetizers. "It's a specialized gift. A full forensic audit and a copy of the federal fraud report I filed this morning." The room went silent. The ice in her glass rattled as her hand finally began to shake. "This isn't just a housewarming, Melinda. It's a notification. Your lender, the FBI, and the JAG office have the same files. Happy move-in day." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a controlled demolition. Melinda tried to laugh, a jagged, desperate sound that grated against the hushed room. She reached for the envelope, her manicured nails snagging on the ribbon, but the loan officer, a man she'd invited to show off her stability, beat her to it. He didn't need to read past the first page of the forensic audit to know the deal was dead. "This transaction is flagged," he said, his voice dropping the professional warmth. He looked at Melinda not as a client, but as a liability. The bridge loan was based on a lie, and the collateral was my life's work. Because I delivered the evidence in front of witnesses, her misunderstanding defense evaporated. The fallout was clinical. Within an hour, the party guests had vanished like smoke. Within a week, the bridge loan was called in, and the dream home was back on the market. Melinda wasn't facing a remodel. She was facing counts of grand larceny and forgery. My father finally spoke, but only to beg for mercy. I didn't give it. You don't negotiate with a breach in security that I didn't stay to watch the moving trucks arrive. And I didn't answer the frantic, sobbing voicemails from my father. Closure isn't a tearful reconciliation or a family talk over a dinner table. In my world, closure is a locked door, a frozen account, and a permanent restraining order. It's the silence that follows a successful extraction. That Melinda's indictment wasn't personal. It was the natural consequence of crossing a line protected by federal law. My father lost the house in his pride because he chose to shield a predator instead of protecting his own blood. That's a debt he'll have to carry on a different ledger. Tonight I sit in my own space. It's modest, quiet, and most importantly, undeniably mine. My bank balance doesn't have any ghosts in the machine. And my future isn't being auctioned off to the highest bidder. I paid for this peace with my service, and I defended it with my discipline. If you've ever had to build a wall to keep out the people who were supposed to be your home, leave a heart in the comments.